This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Welcome to today's episode of Forge Daily. I am your host, Mackenzie Barwell, checking in now October 21st, 2024. Borges FC are coming off their final regular season game and will now look ahead to their first playoff matchup this weekend at home. In today's episode, I'll recap what happened in that Pacific Forge match, share some insights from different interview clips, and then also unpack the results from the Tonybet Outcome this past weekend and what those mean for the implications on the playoff picture. So let's get right into today's episode, beginning with Forge FC's trip to Victoria, BC. For the fifth time in club history, Pacific FC have clinched their spot in the Canadian Premier League playoffs following their 1-0 win to Forge FC this past weekend. They needed these 3 points. A draw or a loss would have put their fate in the hands of another team's result. So it was crucial that they secure those 3 points. Now they are officially the fifth place team who will face York United on the 23rd. Looking at this Forge side, a lot of rotation with regards to their starting 11. Jordan Hamilton started up top in the number 9. Alongside him was Amadou Kone at left wing. Chris Kalongo would return to net for the first time in a while. And because Ali Hajabapur was serving his 1-game discipline suspension, Kadeem Kane stepped in center midfield. Now, the first and only goal of this game came in the 32nd minute when a ball from Adonijah Reed made its way across the box into the feet of Dario Zanata for an easy tap-in. Unfortunately, not a great defensive effort from Forge FC here, and I think Coach Bobby will be the first to admit that. I'll talk to him about it more on Wednesday, but I have a feeling his reaction to just the overall result and performance of this game will be similar to the one we saw last week following Forge FC's loss to Atletico Ottawa. Let me jog your memory on a recent clip from behind the beard.
You kind of know what I'm going to say.
Well,
because we can talk in cliches and about this and that, and the reality is it's this game that doesn't mean a lot to us is a lot different than the game that's going to be played here on October 27th, which is do or die, which means you win that game, we secure a final game.
Yeah.
Now that's a different switch that's on with the players. That's a different level of commitment to what you do. And in the end, that's what let us down this past weekend. It's that switch and that little bit of extra effort, little bit of extra fight on certain things. But sometimes it's normal not to be there, especially if the head is thinking about what's coming next.
Yeah. Coach Bobby didn't hesitate to call me out on a few occasions during that conversation for not knowing the final few results in the 2023 regular season for Forge. But to his point, games like these aren't necessarily indicative of a way a team will enter the playoffs. Going back to this specific game, I want to highlight just a few stats that were pretty closely contested. The first being 5 shots on target for Pacific FC compared to Forge's 6, 16 tackles for Pacific compared to Forge's 15, and a stat with a bigger gap, just 2 corners for Pacific relative to Forge's 8. A few players in orange who entered the game and logged some crucial minutes: Orlandis Benitez in the 63rd minute. Seba Costello, who we haven't seen enough of this season, came into the match alongside Matteo Schiavone in the 76th. And Taron Campbell, it was his 7th appearance of the season. The last game he played was back in August on the 23rd. Unfortunately, his season has been very stop and start with injury, but good to see him back in the lineup as we approach some very important matches. One other thing worth highlighting with regards to this specific matchup and the upcoming playoff games is the absence of Daniel Parra. The league has confirmed that he will serve a 3-game suspension after punching an Atletico Ottawa player in the gut last weekend. If you were at the match or if you caught the highlights, you probably saw things get heated with tensions flaring amongst multiple Forge players and Sam Salter on the field. Now, this specific match will serve as the first game in his suspension. So if Forge win this weekend, Parra will miss the final, serving as his last game of his suspension. However, if Forge lose on Sunday and then win their next game, he will be eligible for selection at the final. So it's certainly not the way that Parra would have wanted to end his season. And while no one's, of course, hoping for a loss this weekend, if it happens, at least Forge fans will know that Parra will be available for the final. As I alluded to earlier, 4 results impacting the playoff picture. All 4 games happened at the same time on Saturday in what was called the Outcome presented by Tonybet. As you know, a 1-0 loss for Forge FC versus Pacific, a 0-0 draw for Atletico Ottawa versus Vancouver FC, and a 2-1 victory for Cavalry against Valor. We should also note 2 goals for Tobias Warshevsky, which would claim him the Golden Boot. Lastly, a win for the team who had already been eliminated from playoff contention. 2-1 victory for the Halifax Wanderers over a 4th place York United. Now, I know that was a lot of info right there, but my good friend Charlie O'Connor-Clark did a great job at breaking all of these results down for the CPL. So here are the implications in a nutshell.
The 2024 regular season has come to an end in the Canadian Premier League as all 8 teams were in action today in the outcome presented by Tonybet, and we now know the 5 teams that are going to take part in the 2024 CPL playoffs. Forge FC, Cavalry FC, Atletico Ottawa, York United, and Pacific FC are our 5, and we now know the schedule for how these playoffs are going to get started. The action begins Wednesday night at York Lions Stadium as 4th place York United host Pacific FC in the first home playoff game in club history, kicking off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. The winner of that game will be right here in Ottawa next Sunday, October 27th, for a quarterfinal matchup at 1 p.m. Eastern against Atletico Ottawa, who finished in 3rd. Later on Sunday afternoon on the 27th, Forge FC, as regular season title winners, will host 2nd place Cavalry FC in a rematch of last year's CPL final, the winner of which will go directly to this year's CPL final and have the right to host it. The loser of that game will go back home and they'll play the winner of Atletico Ottawa versus whoever wins the 4-5 game. Whoever wins that game will play in the final semi-final for that last chance at the CPL final.
So, Forge FC's playoff opponent has been confirmed. Their arch rivals, Cavalry FC, will return to Tim Hortons Field. We are just 1 week away from the playoffs, people. The 2024 CPL final will be at stake on October 27th. In Cavalry, I should add, they'll be coming in hot. They've secured 4 wins and a draw in their last 5 games. So as Forge aim for a 5th championship and a 3rd straight title, this is a game you will not want to miss. Playoff tickets are available now. So many memorable playoff moments here at Tim Hortons Field. Tristan Borges, of course, with an unforgettable one in last year's playoffs. And as a Player of the Year contender, he recently sat down with Christian Jack to reflect on what this club means to him and how much of a legacy he and his teammates are building here at Forge FC.
I've told you that during the season I try to be as focused and engaged on a day-to-day basis and not think too far ahead. Yeah. And then in the off-season kind of wind down and realize the special things that we've been able to do. It's easy. It's very easy to just say that, it's great to win, but I think when you're in the locker room and especially our locker room and what we've been able to do for all these years now, it's something for me, how I look at it, it's something special to see. Even though from the outside it looks like we've been the same every year, You see it's been really different every year, right? We have a lot of different challenges every single year, and I think a lot of the guys say it, it's an expectation now that we've put in the club that for us to win, for us to go in every single week and put the work in and understand that every team, whenever, especially when they come here, they're going to be putting their best foot forward for us to match it and try to go up and put the best performance we can in front of our fans.
I think that's the perfect way to wrap up today's episode. Get excited. More to come from Forge FC as the playoffs will kick off here at Tim Hortons Field this weekend on Sunday against Cavalry FC. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode, and I will see you this weekend.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.